Hello and welcome to another Hand Drink Solo wine info video, and today we are talking about the Feudi di San Gregorio Primitivo di Manduria DOC 2018. Primitivo as a cultivar is grown largely down in southern Italy, down the kind of heel of the boot in regions of Apulia and Campania, and it's now one of the top 10 most planted red cultivars in all of Italy, which actually is saying quite a bit given that there are at least 500 red cultivars listed all on their own. Although, as we know, some of them may be the same cultivar going by different names in different regions. Generally speaking, Primitivo wines from Italy are a little like the contestants from HBO Max's F-Boy Island. They're rich, dense, inky, grew up with a lot of sunshine, and are usually loaded with a lot of alcohol. And historically speaking, before the Italian DOC laws came into play in the 1960s, these big, rich, fruit-forward wines were in fact the blending wine of choice for wine merchants coming down from further north, bringing their sometimes more tannic, austere Sangioveses and Nebbiolos, which needed to be plumped up a little bit with the plush Primitivo wines. So we've spent a little bit of time talking about Primitivo having top 10 status in Italy and how that's kind of a big deal. But the fact is that Italy only has about 30% of the global planting of Zinfandel. Of the 70,000 planted worldwide, only 20,000 in Italy, whereas the other 50,000 is for the most part planted in California, where it gets called Zinfandel. Now the difference and the history of the difference between Zinfandel and Primitivo is absolutely the stuff of legends. For the longest time, Californians were convinced that Zinfandel was indigenous to North America. It was their pride and joy. Their one and only true indigenous vitis vinifera cultivar. But there was some speculation, whispers in the underworld, that perhaps Zinfandel had come from Italy. A little digging into the American wine history revealed a lot of Italian immigrants with surnames like Sebastiani and Foppiani and Saggesi. And so the accusation was made that Zinfandel was in fact an Italian grape, which of course drove proud American Zinfandel fanatics absolutely bonkers.
You take that back! Hey, you! Say it ain't so crusty.
And perhaps to add insult to injury, the Italians didn't seem particularly keen to take ownership of Zinfandel either. They were like,
it's not ours.
It was like they didn't even want to take responsibility for this amazingly gifted orphan prodigy child. Then, it was discovered later on that in fact, Zinfandel didn't come from Italy, nor did it come from California. In fact, it first arrived in America on the East Coast in about 1820, when a botanist from Austria brought it over. It first found a little spot in the limelight, not as a wine grape, but as a table grape, which makes a lot of sense. But when that wave died off, it eventually migrated west to the sunnier Californian climate, where it found potential as a wine grape. But the mystery remained. If it wasn't Californian, and it didn't come from Austria, and the Italians wouldn't own it,
My God, man. Where did it come from?
as it turns out, the answer to that question is Croatia. Took about 35 years of hardcore DNA fingerprinting and ampelography to track down 9 little vines on a vineyard on the Dalmatian coast of Croatia, which, for all we know, could have been the last 9 vines of its kind in the world. And these vines turned out to be exact genetic matches for both Primitivo and Zinfandel. Now, these little vines were called Colle Castellanski. But I mean, it's kind of tricky to say that. You almost have to role play it. You have to get into the zone. I am Boris. I am Goran. No, I'm Drazan. I am Drazan. I am Drazan Petrovic, and I enjoy a big glass of Colle Castellanski. And so the saga unfolded further. We now knew that it wasn't Californian and it wasn't Italian. It was, in fact, Croatian. It wasn't called Zinfandel, nor was it called Primitivo, because the oldest name on record was Colle Castellanski. But mercifully for the linguistically challenged amongst us, an even older vine was found that was also genetically identical to Primitivo and Zinfandel and Colle Castellanski, and it had a far simpler name, Tribidrag. Now, Tribidrag was found in an old lady's garden, a single vine, 90 years old. Because references in literature to Tribidrag were older than references to Colle Castellanski, by rule of anteriority, Tribidrag is now the correct name for the grape. But enough history, man, let's taste it. Well, as expected from our more textbook understanding of Zinfandel, there is so much rich black fruit going on here. Blueberries, plums, black currant pastels, even a little bit of licorice, as well as a lovely floral violet lift, and a hint of perhaps strawberry or raspberry sherbet that lifts the whole affair. And when we take a sip, we find to our delight that the palate really does deliver what the nose promised. There's big, rich, broad elements of black fruit, but with an ever so subtle hint of kind of red candy fruit, again adding a little bit of complexity. And just to add an element of seriousness, there's also some black licorice in there and some quite firm tannins, which I know will be good news for those of you who were worrying that this was going to turn out to be a fruit bomb. And I guess in some senses it is a little bit of a fruit bomb, but it has some lovely complexity to it, and the combination of that big tannic structure, the licorice hint, and a little bit of red fruit is enough to keep everything upright and make it really rather Moorish. Okay, so that's all we have time for today. But if you're watching this on YouTube, why not subscribe to the HanDrinksSolo wine channel so that you can keep up to date with the 6 videos that I publish each month, as well as learn a little bit more about unusual cultivars in South Africa, some wine history, some wine science, and some of the rising stars within the South African winelands.